Are you able to hear us?
No, even there.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
All right.
I was out.
Yep.
Thanks. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Kind of a light crowd today, so let's start off with, I guess we call the meeting to order. It's 9:05. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to your flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do we?
Yeah, so if you want to do introductions, we can say our names and what the representing agency, and if you'd like to recognize worker, we can.
We'll skip that. Yeah, well, Megan, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Megan Winchester with the Hillsborough County Community Infrastructure Planning.
Jeannie Mills with Plan Hillsborough. I am the representative for Plan City.
David Hay, I'm the Planning Commission representative.
Connor Travis McDonald, I'm TPO staff and your liaison to the TPO. Christian Leon, I'm here with Walk Back Tampa.
Omar Pirzada here with Hart.
Lori Belanger with Hillsborough County Public Schools.
This is all the TPO staff.
Uh,
Pass. Livable groupie.
yeah. All right, we don't have a core, correct? So we're gonna,
That's correct. So
yes,
if you want to go to public comment,
sure. Any public? Like to comment? No? Anyone online? I think, just double checking. Yeah, nothing I see.
Is the chair confirmed out or is she just running late?
She's confirmed out.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
I didn't.
She's confirmed out. All right, so since we don't have a quorum, we'll skip over the approval of the minutes. We'll save that for next month. I guess we could hear the action item, we just can't take action on the action item.
Or you can go to your status things and then see if the quorum shows.
I don't think we're gonna inform today. I know it's.
We didn't get enough RSVPs.
You know, there's a lot of other meetings happening. There's a downtown partnership and CTS, traffic safety.
Yeah.
It's busy time.
So, but before we start, regarding the action item, do we hear it and then take action next month? Or is it just we hear it and it goes to the MPO and we don't have a finding from us? Is that how that works?
The second is correct, but you can provide comments and those comments will be provided to the TPO.
Okay,
You're always in your chair report or your
Right,
minutes,
so,
but
yeah.
you won't have a formal vote.
formal action. Okay, just trying to understand.
Okay.
Lisa,
So you want-
yes, go for it, Lisa.
Lisa Silva, TPS staff. I'm the project manager for your action item that we acted on today. And I wanted to tell you a little ditty and then introduce the consultant. So way back when I did the Greater Carrollwood Northville Community Plan, and I met Marty Fierce, that's family member that the roadway's named after. So we had the roadway on the maps and I kept saying Bears. And he's like, what's beers? Like two beers clinking together and stuff. But we removed the adult beverage reference on the slide and pointed out that it's like fierce. Like you have to remember that fierce is a fierce roadway or something. So if anything, I'll help correct pronunciation by introducing this project. It's another corridor study and the many that I brought forward through the committees before that help implement our Vision Zero action plan. This time we had Gresham Smith, so Devin Bars is going to go through our background and process and the recommendations.
Hi, Devin Bars, Gresham Smith. This study was requested by DOT and we worked for them as well as a consultant. So I just wanted to mention that before we get started. The half of the corridor is maintained by Hillsborough County from North Boulevard to Florida Avenue. And the other half of the corridor is maintained by FDOT. So from Avenue to I-275 overpass and then route to the railroad thing.
I was counting. So that's 9.
So to just give you a better orientation, I'm glad Hillsborough County Schools is here today because Buchanan Middle School is on the very western half of the segment and it's on North Boulevard. And like I said, Hillsborough County owns Beers until Florida. At Florida Avenue, it changes ownership or maintenance to DOT. So why is this project important? The community profile shows that the housing units with no vehicles, the low-income households and the renter-occupied households averages are all above the countywide average. That's one reason why multimodal is really important along this corridor. The other reason is that we have a middle school on the western side. And you can see in this graphic, we did pedestrian and bicycle counts. And on the far right at North Boulevard, their peak time crossing had 130 pedestrian crossings, and that occurred at the middle school dismissal. And then the other intersections, main intersections of the corridor also have a higher than average number of crossings. I mentioned this before, but to identify the differences in the two halves of the segment, the Hillsborough County owned segment that goes from North Boulevard to Florida, that's more of a residential feel. It has neighborhoods on the north and south sides of the road. It's a urban section with curb and gutter, and it's a 4-lane divided highway or arterial with either cross medians or turn lanes. And then when we get to Florida Avenue, it becomes mainly commercial land uses on the north and south side. And then the lane count slightly increases as we head towards Nebraska Avenue, but it stays as a divided arterial. And this shows you two graphics. The graphic on the top is the residential section with the curb and gutter, and the graphic on the bottom is the commercial segment 2. Which is right now mostly flush shoulder with some drainage swales on the sides. There are segments of curb and gutter. Of important mention is the speed limit's 45. The existing sidewalks range from 3 feet to 5 feet, so they're quite narrow. And there really are no dedicated bike facilities. The only bike facility is a very short segment that starts east of Nebraska. So that's the very far eastern end of the study corridor. And we did a field review, and we also found that there are a number of ADA issues, meaning the lack of ADA compliance with the ramps and the push buttons along the corridor. Some other things that we noticed during the field review, we have a lot of different micro mobility throughout the corridor. This picture at the top is just one of many that we noticed of micro mobility. This gentleman was actually crossing mid-block, which you probably know is one of the least safe ways to cross. It's an uncontrolled crossing. That's another micro mobility, and the sidewalk under the I-275 overpass is actually the narrowest part and has the highest stress level for pets and bikes. And there's a lack of sidewalk within the railroad right of way, which is that picture on the far right. You can tell it's highly traveled because there's a dirt path through it, but there's no sidewalk on the north or south side of Bears. I mentioned level of stress, and this room might be familiar with this, but the level of stress analysis showed that for both pedestrians and bicycles, it's the highest level of stress. So that's a level of stress 4, which means that further supports we need to make some improvements to the multimodal facilities along Beers. We did a in-depth crash analysis. And for the pedestrian crashes, they were all concentrated between North Boulevard and I-275. We had 4 high severity pedestrian crashes, which is a very high number considering the short distance of the segment. And it resulted in 1 fatality and two people being incapacitated, and then 2 others having a higher severity but non-incapacitating crash. Now, the 3 or 6, there's 4 crash events, but 1 involves 2 people. So there's 4 people. Their crashes occurred doing mid-block crossings between North Florida and I-275. So they were crossing at an unsignalized location and darting across the road. And that resulted in a fatality and the 2 incapacitating injuries. For bicycle crashes, we have 8 total events, which is also a very high number for such a short segment. All of these crashes occurred, bikes were in marked crosswalks. So they were crossing, vehicles were crossing with bikes, the bikes were in the crosswalk and they were hit by the vehicles. So these were turning vehicles that were hitting the bicyclists that were in crosswalks. And that brings up one important item, which you'll see relates to our recommendation, is we noticed a reluctance of vehicles that are turning right to yield to the bikes that are crossing in the crosswalk. Our vehicular crash trends were mainly, the highest crash trend was nighttime crashes at 42%. We consider an average number to be 30%, so 42% is much higher than that. And then the red light running crashes occurred mainly near the I-275 overpass. We did a operational analysis because DOT is planning sometime in the future to change the signal layout at the I-275 overpass. Currently, there's 2 separate signals that are really close to each other. When they do the work on the overpass, their plan is to make it 1 single signal. So we did an operational analysis, and the benefits of changing it to 1 signal is that it prevents the traffic queues from blocking the adjacent signal. So that's a big improvement. And then one of our recommendations for Florida and Nebraska is to install what's called near perpendicular right turn lanes. And that is also going to help the vehicle delay, but also increase the awareness of the driver to reduce the crosswalk crashes. So the crashes that are occurring in the crosswalk. So diving into our proposed improvements, along the corridor, I'm going to go through corridor improvements, and then I'm going to get into intersection specific improvements. Our recommended corridor improvement for a ped bike facility is to do a shared use path. This is going to be the safest solution for the speed of the road, and then also the most feasible solution instead of trying to repurpose a lane and turn it into a dedicated bike facility. So we're recommending a shared use path that provides a curb that separates the vehicles from the shared use path, and it provides a wide enough facility that it can be used comfortably by pedestrians and bikes. Our second corridor wide improvement is the lighting. That obviously relates to the high percentage of nighttime crashes. For speed reduction, we're recommending narrowing the lane widths to 11 feet. We're also recommending street trees in the medians along the Hillsborough County segment. There's some grass medians where we can install street trees. We're also recommending speed feedback signs and to offset the mid-block crossing crashes for the pedestrians, we're recommending two pedestrian hybrid beacon controlled mid-block crossings. And one of those is gonna go in the exact location where we have the existing crash history for pedestrians. The other one we're recommending in front of the crisis center, which is between North Boulevard and Florida. And you notice people crossing mid-block there. Fortunately, we don't have the crash history, but we want to get ahead of that and provide a safe crossing because it's a decently far distance to your nearest signalized intersection. Jumping into intersection specific improvements, interior illuminated street signs and the backplates, updating the backplates for all the signal heads are two pretty easy improvements to make. The more costly and design intensive improvements that we feel are necessary are upgrading any strain pole signals to mouse stars and upgrading all the signal technology to the latest ITS technology. I already mentioned the near perpendicular right turn lanes and with adding the sidewalks across the railroad crossing, we're going to need to change the railroad signals so that the arms stop anybody that's using the sidewalks. These are some corridor maps that we put together to graphically show. This starts at North Boulevard, so at Buchanan Middle School. This shows the shared use path on the north and the south side, the signal upgrades at North Boulevard. And then as we go to the east, it's the same proposed typical section. This is the first pedestrian hybrid beacon mid-block crossing in front of the crisis center. And then here at Florida Avenue, we're showing how the near perpendicular right turn lanes would be incorporated into the intersection. This is our second mid-block crossing, which is right where those pedestrian crashes have occurred before we get to I-275. And this is the I-275 overpass. This lane geometry that you see is the current concept that DOT is considering for their future design. And then as we're heading towards Nebraska Avenue, same, we have shared use paths, near perpendicular right turn lanes at Nebraska, and then we have the sidewalk that crosses in CSX right away. And if you're wondering why it becomes a sidewalk through the railroad, that's a CSX constraint. They only allow a 5-foot width instead of like a full shared use path. And last is our difference in typical section. So on the top, I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's the existing typical section. And then on the bottom is the proposed. So the main thing to point out here is you have the wider shared use path on both sides, the north and south side of the road. Once the proposed improvements are designed and constructed. This is our second segment from North Boulevard to I-275. Again, the shared use paths. We are recommending to install curb and gutter to replace the flush shoulder to just provide that vehicle and ped bike separation. This is the I-275 overpass. Unfortunately, DOT does plan on replacing the overpass itself. So they'll be able to put in a wider span and we can have wider shared use paths on the north and south side. And this is our last segment to Nebraska, which is, again, today, part of it's flush shoulder, part of it's curb and gutter. And we're recommending most of it's going to be curb and gutter with the shared use path. So that concludes my presentation, and I know that we might not have a quorum, but we're hoping that the TPO recommends approval.
All right, well, thank you very much. Any questions?
What was the data period for the crash data?
Like the time period.
5 years.
Okay.
So we did all of 2020 through 2025.
Other questions?
No kudos on recommending street trees?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Excellent. I'm hoping all this goes through. It looks really good. The street trees, Lisa knows I always talk about street trees. The segments, on some of those segments, you had shown like the green area between the road and the sidewalk gets wider in certain particular areas. Are there any,
We go
I
back.
know you had said in Hillsborough County, they're looking at putting street trees in the median. But as, you know, someone who walks occasionally around, you know, it can get very hot here. And so, you know, the street trees in the median, better than nothing, but they don't offer any shade to pedestrians. Is there any opportunity in some of these areas for street trees that
To
actually
use
provide
that
shade?
space. I mean, the short answer is yes. And if DOT, you know, can support it with whatever maintenance agreements are necessary to take care of those trees would be, you know, the realistic answer.
Yeah,
So I know that we propose them in Hillsborough County's medians because they are always on board with that. And there's trees there today. They're very small and I think they're dying. So replacing them is a for sure thing. We didn't want to show them in that grass strip, which will also have to be used for drainage treatment. If we can, we don't want to make a promise we can't keep.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying.
yeah, I get it. I always have to talk about it, but,
Or suggesting they match the Hillsborough County design manuals allowances. We've seen that come through the committees that they have certain criteria that allow for them. So wherever they can put them in, great, replace them, great, but
my other question related to when you had discussed about the bike users that were hit within the crosswalks. In any of these studies, this one or does FDOT, do they look at what happens after the person's hit, as in the driver is charged and goes through the process of whether they're guilty or not? Is that like, because I'm looking at it as if, because I've seen it down in Riverview where people are just making those rights and they're slowing down and they're not. So I'm wondering if it's a deeper issue of, is there enforcement of people like actually when they're hitting someone in the crosswalk, are there repercussions to, you know?
Right, that's a good question. Law enforcement, it's written that if it occurs within a marked crosswalk, the driver should be ticketed. So that is the rule that the officers are supposed to follow.
But we
And
don't
in a lot
know
of-
if they're actually,
If they're actually doing that, yeah, I mean, in our crash reports, it shows like, you know, they were hitting the marked crosswalk, so they were issued a citation.
okay,
And that we are seeing that consistently through when we're reading all these crash reports. As long as there's a marked crosswalk.
right, yeah, if someone's
So-
doing a
right.
run across.
But you're right. Statewide on the Bike Ped Coalition, you experience it. Sometimes they're not, and sometimes they actually ticket the bicyclist. And, you know, we're like, well, we lose our mind because we're like, the bicyclist is.
And then I'm curious, okay, you get a citation, but you can appeal that too. So I'm wondering if there's any, you know, and you might not know this answer.
Right,
kind
I
of
think
thing.
that's a really good question for our law enforcement. And we actually have one on staff that I can ask if that's something that you want me to follow up on. We have a Tampa Police Department who works for us part-time on staff, so.
Well, that's good to know for all my others.
I know, I would be curious, is it like 95% are cited and they pay the fine or are guilty or whatever? Or is it like, hey, they're all getting a citation, but when they work through the process, it's like 25% actually?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't know.
That, beyond scope here, but.
I know.
Good expertise.
I can ask the question just because we have that resource.
Yeah. And then
We
maybe.
have had that resource for a while.
Okay. And my last question, I promise, is, when you're doing the, pedestrian counts, I think it was your first slide, where it talks about, oh, we saw, I think like 130 near the school and all that stuff. Is that only in the marked crosswalks, or is that also that gentleman running across or wheeling across the street that we saw in the photo?
It doesn't capture the mid-block crossings.
Okay.
So we would have to do, and what would be required to put in these pedestrian hybrid beacons is that we would do data collection between the segments. With, it's all video collected, but yes, so it doesn't capture the mid-block volumes. That will be required once this goes into design.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It was very good presentation, and hopefully we see all these changes. Any other questions? No? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right. That was our one non-action item. Action, non-action. All right, next on to status reports, the 2027, 2036 Transit Development Plan Major Update with Omar.
It's me.
Thank you again.
There.
Yep.
All right, morning, everyone. Hopefully y'all know me by now since I've been on the Livable Roadways Committee for about 2 years now. But I'm Omar Pirzada, representative of ART, and I'm here to present on the Transit Development Plan, TDP, major update that we're doing as an agency right now. So just to kind of touch on, what exactly is a TDP? So a TDP, the way I like to think of it is it's Hart's vision plan. It's, how we want to see our transit improve and grow in the region. It helps us prioritize projects. It helps us understand the community needs and see, how we can best meet those needs. Kind of on a more technical, speaking of it, it's our multi-year financial and operating plan for our agency. We're also, we're not just doing it for fun, even though it is fun to do, but it's also an FDOT requirement that all public transit providers in the state of Florida complete a TDP in order to continue to receive state funding. So if we were to not do a TDP process, if we were not to go through all this, then we would lose our state funding, and that would definitely be a bummer. So don't want to miss out on that. So the TDP major updates, so that's what we're working on right now. Those are required every 5 years, and then we do our annual updates in the years in between. So if some of you remember a few months ago, I was here presenting on the annual update. And that was an annual update from our 2023 TDP that we completed in 2022. And now we are here this year working on our next major update to be submitted by next March. So we're starting the project. We started it earlier this year, so it's about a year-long process to do all the outreach, do all the analysis, and then submit that final plan. So just to kind of speak of, how the TDP fits in with some of the other HART plans that we do, and then also some of the TPO's plans. So you kind of see the TDPs here in the middle. Usually the first thing we do, and this is best practice, is we do what we call a comprehensive operational analysis, also known as a COA. So that's looking more at short-term cost neutral improvements, things that HART can do within our existing resources to improve the system, grow ridership, improve the rider experience. So again, looking just what we're able to do in the present. So with that plan, that kind of builds into the TDP, because the TDP is a lot more of a, long range vision, looking at a 10-year, kind of horizon. It's also including unfunded needs, so, with the COA being, what we can do within our resources. If HART were to get more funding, what we prioritize, would it be more frequency on our current routes? Would it be new routes? Would it be, sorry about that. So yeah, just like, what do we want to do? Like, how does HART want to grow? How does HART want to best meet the needs of the county and the region? And obviously, there's a public involvement process that also informs this, and I will touch on that as well. And you guys also have flyers kind of talking on that public outreach as well. So this keeps popping up. Sorry about that.
Sorry, it's the USB drive.
Okay, okay. I just keep hitting that in some public those, but keep, I'll power you through, we'll see. And then ideally that TDP would have hit minus, but hit minus. Let's see.
We may be able to take out the.
Let's see. See, it's gonna pop up. There.
Sure, we're not listening.
Like if you heard of it. That's what people. No, you're good. So yeah, like I said, so HART completes the COA. The COA is optional. It's best practice to do one, and that then feeds into the TDP, which, as I mentioned, is required for FDOT state funding. And then that feeds into the TPO's long range transportation plan, which is the longer range county transportation plan. The TDP kind of feeds into that transit element of that plan. So these are just the requirements of what all goes into the TDP, what goes into that final report that we submit to FDOT and that we use as our vision plan. So really like the core base of everything we do is that first step right there, which is the public involvement process. I'll be touching on that on the next slide, so I don't want to focus too much on it right now. But that's really just the base and the foundation for all we do, because we want to make sure that the plan is, inclusive of what the public needs, what, the community stakeholders need, what the jurisdictions need, just kind of understanding what the needs are and, factoring that into the plan. So next, on top of that, we have our MPO coordination, which we document and do through the TDP process. We also look at our our existing conditions. So seeing where HART is now, the COA really helps build into that part 3 of the operating context evaluation. And then also looking at, the relationship to other plans and, how HART works, with the comprehensive plan, with other plans that, the different jurisdictions do. Making sure everything is in line with that. Next, we look at, land use. So we really rely on our partners, the planning commission, with TPO, with our jurisdictions to see, how the county is growing, how the jurisdictions are growing, and then how HART can best meet the needs of these growing areas. And then all of that then feeds into kind of the most nitty-gritty part of it, which is the 10-year operating capital program. So this really gets into a specific. So again, we do our public involvement process. We talk to all of our stakeholders. We look at our existing conditions. And then with that, we're able to come up with a pretty robust, list of projects. We're then able to prioritize them for any like new routes or service improvements. We do ridership estimates. And then we also look at, how much all these are going to cost. And we create a detailed finance plan looking at, how much existing operations are going to cost over the next 10 years, but also looking at if we are to do new types of service, how much that would cost as well. And that really helps for, when we submit it to FDOT and also just communicating with our stakeholder partners as well. Because as we grow, as we want to do new things, we also want to understand, how much it's going to cost as well. All right, and then the main thing I want to get in today, and just kind of my plug here. So we passed around earlier today, these flyers right here that go over our public involvement activities. So March is kind of our big public outreach kind of month for the project. So we're doing a bunch of activities. We're doing a online survey. So you have a QR code right here that you can scan if you're able to take it and provide your feedback. You can, answer as just yourself and how you want HART to grow, how you want transit to grow in the region, and how it can best meet the needs of, Hillsborough County residents. We also have our vision workshops that we're doing. So we've already completed 5 of them, but we have 5 upcoming. We're actually doing one tonight in South County, which again is a major growing area with not a lot of transit, so we're definitely curious about how those people feel about how they want Hart to, grow and serve them in the future. We're also gonna be in Brandon, and then we have 3 more workshops next week. One in the Palm River Progress Village area, one in downtown Tampa, and then one in South Tampa. So again, we already did our 5 previously. That's on the list that you all have. But, if any of you all are able to attend any of the upcoming ones, or just take the survey too. Caroline, you're at the West Shore one, we appreciate that as well. But yeah, we just appreciate any feedback and just hearing, how we want park service to improve. So with that, I'll just kind of touch on the timeline of kind of where we are and, kind of the next steps. So like I mentioned, we're kind of in the midst of our TDP outreach, and that's kind of the, mainly doing the workshops, the survey. But kind of on an ongoing basis, we're also going to be doing other outreach activities throughout the year, whether that's going to our transit and transfer centers and talking directly to riders, talking to community stakeholders as well. Just kind of seeing, how they want park service to, again, improve and grow to best meet the needs of people. So March is the main month that's going to be ongoing. We're doing our presentations right now. We're presenting to DPO and all the committees, which is, why I'm here today. You'll see me again in August. Well, you'll see me every month because I'm on LRC, but you'll see me in August, I guess, presenting, because we're going to be talking about, the outreach results and just kind of, like what's the status of the project, kind of looking at also like what came out of our existing conditions review, what came out of the outreach. So we'll have a lot of fun stuff to share there. And then we're going to be doing the TDP, the final approval for the plan, in November 2026 to the Hart Board. And then we're going to be going to the TPO in January to also get TPO's approval and just, show them the final results of the plan. And then by March 1st, we'll be submitting that final plan to DOT District 7, so we can continue to get our state funding, which is good for us. So that's all I got. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Thanks for your time.
Questions? Well, of course, I have a few. The whole property tax discussion that's occurring up in our wonderful state capital, it's hard. Are you guys safe from all that discussion? Is that part of this kind of figuring out if there's a reduction, how it's gonna impact? Has that been discussed at Hart, or I would assume it's like a scenario in here somewhere?
Absolutely. To answer one part of that question, we're always monitoring because things just change by the day, and we have to know what's happening at the state level because, the majority of Hart's funding is actually that or property tax. So not even just elimination, but a reduction in that is going to be big for us. And we have to, keep in the know of that, keep understanding. We're monitoring and, looking to what those impacts might be. I don't have anything like too specific to share because again, all those plans at the state level, we don't know how they're going to transpire at the end. And it's not just Hart, a lot of transit agencies in the state and also just a lot of public agencies in general rely on those property tax dollars. So there's going to be impacts. I think at the state level is important. They understand, what those impacts are going to be. And I think at the Hart level too, we make the case of, what we provide right now and how it's an essential service. And as those plans become more real as far as, what a property tax reduction might look like, it's going to be on us to kind of show like, hey, if that happens, here's the cuts that we're going to have to make. And that's not a position we want to be in. And hopefully we can avoid some of that, but it's something that we always have to be on the know of. I know that with the TDP process, it's aspirational. It's looking at, how we want to grow, how we want to develop. And that's also assuming new types of funding. And currently the conversation right now is reducing that funding. So it's a interesting position to be put in, but I think even just doing this plan and speaking on what those needs are, what we're able to do in our existing conditions and providing a productive and overall, good ridership transit service right now, but showing that, there's room for growth, especially as the county grows and, as traffic gets worse, as population grows, as more people you know, as cost of living goes up and more people need a affordable, reliable means of transportation to work. We really need to do a good job of advocating and showing, you know, the value that art brings to the community so that if those conversations about property tax reductions come up, we know how to count them.
Well, kind of speaking about potential growth, I know in Unica, we've had discussions on Pine
Plant
City.
City.
And some, which was kind of surprising because they're not the client, right? Plant City isn't a client. But in some of the discussions we've had on Plant City, as we're updating this, that there's actually seems to be interest in transit service, right?
Yeah.
Internal, and then also connecting Plant City to Tampa, I guess.
Yes.
So that was an interesting kind of tidbit of, because I don't think we were expecting.
Yeah, we weren't expecting.
Right, so just to put on your radar screen that as we're working on the update to the comp plan, there is this, it seems to be a desire to better connect that community with us here in Tampa and everything, so funding cuts, but then also, yeah.
I appreciate that note and Unica, you know, as the Plant City comprehensive plan, as that process goes on, you know. I know, and like David mentioned, art is, or Plant City is not, you know, a client of art, and the reason is because, you know, we're talking about ad valorem dollars, you know. If you live in the Plant City limits, you're not paying property tax to art, so that was a decision made a while ago. That's why there is no service to Plant City right now. In the past, you know, we had some circulator routes that used to run in Plant City, and then we also had the express routes, but as time has gone on, and you know, funding has become thinner and costs have gone up, you know, we've had to, you know, reevaluate, and that's what's led to those cuts. But Plant City, to your guys' point, it is a growing area. A lot of people are moving there. And I would think there is a need for some sort of transit service. So we at least want to say like, hey, if not in the near term, because I think in the near term it's gonna be difficult to kind of reallocate those resources. I think we always want to monitor and just kind of understand, you know, how the area is growing and, you know, always potentially revisit those conversations in the future.
Well, and I think the discussion would be, yeah, we want service, but are you willing to be taxed for the service?
That's the big deal.
That is the big question.
Right.
Yeah, and also I just want to speak, like, we, you know, we get, like customer calls of like people, it's like, hey, like people in Plant City, they're like, oh, like, I want service in Plant City. And I'm usually the one that picks up those calls and like, I explain to them the whole history and I'm like, well, here's why there is no service in Plant City. And I do tell them like, but, you know, if there's a need for service, I mean, advocate for yourself, advocate for your community, let people know, because that's how I think at the Plant City level, that's how they'll understand, and that's how maybe those conversations about, you know, like whether it's property tax or anything that, you know, that can be brought up, and also at the heart level too, like if we understand what we need, with these vision workshops we're doing, like, we're not going to Plant City again because we don't serve it, so I think it would be kind of like a little unfair to go there and be like,
Right.
hey, what do you want, when we're not serving you right now?
Right.
And there's really no immediate items right now. But we want to keep understanding, and I think if the people push for it, if the city grows for it, then it's something that we'll have to, I think, naturally just revisit at some point.
Well, and just to, there does seem to have been a shift in this current leadership that's out in Plant City, at least what we're seeing. Like, we're not just bedroom community anymore. They seem to be going through this kind of like, we're this kind of the center of this eastern region, I guess. So there was a whole discussion about, you know, agriculture and that, you know, oh, we're not an agricultural, we're a commercial center, basically.
Yeah.
So kind of a different discussion about it. You had your hand up, right?
Yes, I was just gonna make a comment, that the TPO has a study on, Plant City transit connections. I'm not sure the age of it at this point, but that might be a helpful information.
Yeah, I can send that to you. I think it was done in coordination with CART, I think around 2017,
That's not
that time period. I read it, this is pretty interesting, the public outreach results of that. So I can send that to you if you're curious, and just something to have.
and then Frank has a question.
Yeah, good morning. This is Frank Kokenauer, Plain City. I'm just curious,
Frank, do you have a
I've not,
question, comment?
yes, do you not hear my mic? Do you not hear me?
I think you're on mute.
Do you hear me now? Hello? Well, I'm gonna go
Connor,
out and come back.
Connor, can you
Like,
hear
yeah,
me?
it needs to be turned up.
I can
Hello?
hear him.
I can hear him too. Connor, hello?
Hold
Hello,
on, Frank, we're.
No,
I
it's
didn't
Gail.
slow down.
Hello.
He's coming in person. He's right here.
I think the room is muted.
The here, let me let him in. Connor, hello?
Hello, this is Frank again.
Frank, we can hear you online.
You can hear? Okay.
But I don't think
sometimes,
Frank, we're working through some technical stuff at our end.
I don't
Okay.
think they can hear us in the room.
okay, okay.
There you go.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Frank, you're on.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Sometimes I have difficulty with my headset. I hit the wrong button. Yeah, I was just wanting to chase that down a little bit. The inquiry that you got, did that come from staff or senior management or city commission by any chance?
I didn't catch that. So,
In Plain City,
Yes.
Did you receive, someone was asking you a question, a citizen maybe, or?
yeah, so I think all, like, we have what's called like C-Click Fix, which is like a customer, it's mostly like our customer service line, but then also we have like, if it's like community requests, they put it in through that. So our customer service team intakes those calls, and then if it's planning or kind of service development related, they then forward it to us at the planning staff level. And then our planning staff, like, will sometimes reach out or we'll look into the issue. Sometimes it's like more of like a specific like route issue. It's like, hey, I would like a bus stop here. I would like to see this route come more often, so like that kind of stuff. But in the past, we have had some people that are in Plain City that say, I want train service in Plain City. So I've talked to them, I explained to them, like the situation of how we don't have service. And I just say, the best thing to do is advocate for yourself and, keep it in the know.
and is Frank wondering where we're hearing it from? Because it was through the survey, right? And in Plain
Through the
City.
survey, but also some of the, whenever we had the department head meeting in April of last year, some of the staff noted that in their comments as well.
Okay. Okay. So there was some staff level discussions rather than it didn't come from the administration or the commission necessarily.
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Because I know there had been some interest in maybe studying some different components, but I didn't know if any of that had got to you or not. So, okay. All right. I'll tell you what, I'll talk with Robin. I know y'all are working on our comp plan. That would be something to maybe explore at that level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds good. Yeah.
It came out through the survey that there's at least some interest out there. Now, whether that equates to them getting taxed, that's the tough
Right.
question.
That's the $64 million question.
Everyone wants everything for free, but we'll know.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to chase that down a little bit.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. All right. Anything else for Omar? All right.
I just have one final plug. Please take the survey. There's a QR code here. You do take it. I only have, and you can also do it at Heart Vision. Let me go here. Heartvisionplan.com. So that's for the online people. You can take the survey there. And I only have one request to take the survey. That's the dream big. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, next we have the introduction to the Palm River Traffic Study. Good morning.
Yes, it's just taking this.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nashid Shamin. I'm the principal planner from Community and Infrastructure Planning Department. And I'm going to present you the Palm River traffic study today. So these are the items that I'll be discussing briefly. So Community and Infrastructure Planning Department, in coordination with other county departments and a consulting firm led by HNTB, is conducting a work on Palm River traffic study for the area on the 78th Street from south of Causeway Boulevard to south of Selman Expressway. The purpose of our study is to evaluate the 78th Street corridor to ensure transportation supports a safe, multimodal, and walkable environment aligned with community and land use vision. The objectives are to identify deficiencies using a data-driven approach focusing on all users, align improvements with Palm River Community Framework and land use, and to identify efficient use of existing right-of-way to meet current and future needs. So this is our area of influence. The study limit is from the south of Selman Expressway to south of Causeway Boulevard, but the area of influence is bound by State Road 60, US 41, Causeway Boulevard, and US 301. There were some multiple studies that took place in the Palm River area, which are Palm River Progress Village Community Plan, 78th Street Vision Zero Corridor Work, and the 20-minute neighborhood pilot study. The Palm River Progress Village Community Plan, which was updated in 2024, is the study that led us to this Palm River traffic study. The vision statement from that study was to preserve our unique cultural heritage, vibrant neighborhood, and open spaces. And we aim to reduce local road traffic, safeguard waterfronts, green areas, and environmentally sensitive lands. The community plan elements include traffic congestions, safety, and nodal developments. The community supports a Vision Zero approach to prioritize roadway safety. It also suggests that intersections should be designed to be walkable and should reflect best practices in pedestrian-oriented roadway and site design. And the nodal development includes two important nodes, which are also part of our traffic study, that are Palm River Road and 78th Street, and Causeway Boulevard and 78th Street. So as I mentioned, that the Palm River Progress Village Community Plan asked to this Palm River traffic study to evaluate through traffic management, safety nodes, transit support, and Vision Zero to enhance the community mobility. This is the existing typical section of the 78th Street. 78th Street is a 4-lane roadway with a 2-way left turn lane in the middle. It has 8 feet sidewalk with 2 feet buffer on both sides. The existing condition assessments are currently going on, which includes safety analysis, active network analysis, and land use context. The safety analysis includes a comprehensive 5-year crash history review using Signal 4 analytics. The active network analysis includes assessment of sidewalks, trails, transit connectivity, evaluating school zones, senior centers, etc. And land use context includes analysis of surrounding development, zoning conflict, and potential overlay district feasibility. So a 5-year crash history reveals that there were 501 crashes between 2021 and 2025 in our study area. Among them were 5 fatal crashes, 15 serious injury crashes, 14 pedestrian crashes, and 12 bicycle crashes. So safety is an issue in that corridor. The estimated economic loss from all these crashes between 2021 and 2025 is more than $96 million. So the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Model, TPRPM version 10.1, will be used to perform the sub-area model validation. It will also be being used for evaluating the growth rates and to get the 2050 model volumes for the future conditions analysis. The TBRPA model shows a steady growth rate of 3.4% along the 78th Street corridor. So the existing condition analysis is going on, and after that, the consultants will perform the future condition analysis. They will develop the conceptual plans based on that and provide us with multiple alternatives in alignment with Hillsborough County Design Transportation Manual and FDOT Design Manual. So this is the project implementation path. We already have the stakeholders coordination meeting in January of this year. The comprehensive existing condition and safety analysis is still going on and near completion. The alternative analysis and model-based build scenarios are also in the process. So after they're done with the future analysis, we'll have some short-term versus long-term improvement plan. And we'll prioritize them based on the Vision Zero goals and the review of our right-of-way needs. And finally, it has to be aligned with the Palm River framework. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No. Of course, I'm gonna have some. So, I recently rode down 78th Street. There's all these bollards everywhere. Is this tied to that, or is this a separate?
No, that is separate.
That's
That's a separate thing. That's from Public Works. They did the tier 1 improvements. So they have their separate tiers or whatever for the type of improvements. So part of tier 1 was adding in the bollards and then also doing the median art that is now gone. So that was part of their efforts,
Okay.
but it's all
Yeah,
happening in coordination.
It changed the way even I was driving a little slower, I think, so, which is good. But question, this, I know there's a segment from Causeway to the elementary school. It's 1 mile, it has no crosswalks. And that wasn't, there weren't any crosswalks added, I don't think, yeah.
Yeah, that will probably be in tier 2.
That would be in tier 2, because I know there's a bus and people are, you know, if you want to go north or south, you got to get across the street. So they're not going to walk a mile to, you know, go around. So is with the, when you're studying that, that would come to
Yes.
this?
Yes, definitely
potential.
we'll be taking all this into account because that school, elementary school is also a very part of our analysis, like important part of our analysis.
Yeah.
And the one that you mentioned, the thing that you're seeing, those are part of the 78th Street Corridor Vision Zero goal that is done by the Public Works being processed. But our one is actually a capacity analysis focusing on the 2050 volume for the future. So as I said, like the 3.4% growth by 2050, the traffic will be enormous. So we need to address that to accommodate in the same roadway because there is also a right-of-way constraints. We cannot add lanes. So we have to come up with some of the alternatives to accommodate those future traffics. And of course, safety is an important part of that.
Well, they could hopefully ride more hard.
Yes.
Get off the road, but,
Yeah.
so hopefully get some mid-block crossings out of this whole thing. Omar?
Actually, to the point of mid-block crossings, and Megan, it might be part of the tier 2 of the project where,
Believe
because
so.
we were on a call, a staff call recently, with another consultant doing the work on Palm River
Yeah,
about
yes.
some mid-block crossings at some stops. Looking at maybe like potentially, you know, seeing if we need to like relocate any of the stops for the mid-block crossings. But yeah, I think to your point, it's an important transit corridor right now. We have our Route 8 that goes through, and a lot of those stops are in poor condition, and there's not a lot of good shading as well. That's another complaint. Actually, I literally got a complaint of like that customer service portal I was talking about. We got a complaint yesterday about like there's not shade at this bus stop. So we definitely recognize like the need for it. Nishita, I know you engaged us also as part of this process, so we
Yes.
thank you for that too. And then yeah, I think just engaged. We're excited about the mid-block crossings too, because that's also the big danger thing, you know, when someone gets off the bus and then, you know, they got to cross the street and they're not gonna walk to the crosswalk. They're gonna dart. Yeah. So
Human
yeah,
nature.
yeah, great work. Thank you.
Yeah, very good, very good. Thank you very much. Any other questions? No? Thank you. Thanks. All right, next, the local roadway resilience countermeasures.
Yes, and Wyatt is for.
Wyatt's online, okay. Hey, Wyatt.
Good morning. Is the microphone coming through okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Connor, I'll share my screen. Um, are you able to see the slides all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So good morning, LRC, Wyatt Birchall, TPO staff. To present on this, was mentioned the local roadway resilience countermeasures study. Let me figure out how to, there we go. Okay, so just as a reminder, for today, this is information only, as a status item. There's no action being requested of you now. We'll return to TPO committees and the TPO board in May with a final version, for acceptance of the report. So why we're looking at this now, and first let me just say, my regrets for not being able to be there in person. I have a sudden medical family related matter that I'm in Pensacola, Florida for. So while I'm sorry I can't be there in person, I appreciate the opportunity to be here virtually. So for this study, in addition to resilience planning requirements being established in both federal and state policy, we know that the Hillsborough Transportation Network is particularly vulnerable to the impacts of natural disasters, exposure to extreme heat, and increased flooding, as we've seen most recently in the aftermath of Debbie, Helene, and Milton. To put some perspective on how vulnerable the region is, according to the most recent Tampa Bay report, Resilient Tampa Bay report, looking at Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough County, Hillsborough County has a total of 500 total centerline miles of transportation facilities which are impacted by precipitation events such as a 9-inch precipitation event. And so there are many other things that we'll be looking at as part of this study. So the project overview is divided into 3 major components. The first phase focused on developing roadway selection criteria to identify 3 representative corridors for analysis. These corridors were selected to reflect a range of resilience challenges, allowing us to examine context-specific issues and identify applicable adaptation strategies. Our goal is to ensure variability across roadway types, surrounding conditions, such as the different land uses and transportation interactions, looking at the context classification, the functional classification of the roads, as well as the unique resilience challenges associated with each of those. This approach allows us to explore solutions, and we hope that the roads that we identify and the resilient solutions we research will be broadly applicable across Hillsborough County. Subsequent phases will focus on researching global best practices for resilience, along with evaluating implementation considerations such as the cost, looking at a range of low, medium, and high cost solutions. So as you can see, there are many aspects to the scope of this project. I won't go through all of them, but as we'll see, many past resilience studies have focused on a system-wide analysis of critical and vulnerable infrastructure. These typically prioritize major corridors based on proximity to key facilities such as hospitals, schools, and evacuation routes. And exposure to hazards such as flooding and hurricanes, as well as a combination of those events with sea level rise projections. As a result, these often emphasize large-scale and high-cost improvements, which are valuable contributions. So while we do consider criticality and vulnerability considerations as part of this study, we are also mainly shifting some attention and focus to local collector roads, incorporating, as I mentioned, a range of geographic contexts and vulnerability types, including heat, inland flooding, and coastal flooding. The outcome will be an illustrated countermeasures toolkit highlighting 3 representative corridors in Hillsborough County. And for each, we'll identify key resilience challenge, proposed targeted solutions, including design strategies, cost ranges, potential return on investment, all supported by visual diagrams and best practices from similarly vulnerable regions, as well as best practices from abroad. So the policy background, the team, we've compiled a list of all plans and studies. You can see on the screen, we reviewed and helped to shape, these were reviewed to help shape and inform the filter that we applied in narrowing down 3 representative corridors to study. And some of these plans and studies include the City of Tampa Vulnerability Assessment from 2025, the Local Mitigation Strategy Priority Project List, most recently updated in November of 2025, the Tampa Heat Playbook, which was published in 2024, and then, of course, relevant TPO documents such as our 2050 Plans Needs Assessment for State of Good Repair and Resilience, the Freight Supply Chain Resilience Study, the Resilient Tampa Bay Pilot Program Project from 2019, and Vulnerability Assessment and Adaptation Pilot Project from back in 2014, which established the criticality and vulnerability factors, which I can speak to more later. So for this project, here on the screen is the project timeline. As I mentioned, we're just now completed our roadway identifications. We're currently researching any new innovative adaptive measures for resilient solutions. And our plan is to have a final countermeasures guidebook completed in April of 2026, and then in May of 2026, we plan, as I mentioned, to come back to TPO committees and the TPO board for acceptance of the report. We, as I touched on briefly, we spent a considerable amount of time and attention reviewing and assessing various factors from all the plans and assessments that have been done related to vulnerability. So we first wanted to focus on plan alignment. If we wanted to make sure that any roads that we were examining had been identified to some extent in previous plans and studies. And then that we were using good data from those studies, such as the LMS as a working group for priority projects. Another major factor that we wanted to consider, of course, was to make sure that these were eligible for federal funding so that they were on the NPO's network. And we also wanted to provide for geographic risk and functional variety. Of course, we can only be so fine given that we're focusing on just 3 roads. Our hope is that they'll be that they can be generalized enough to represent many roads in Hillsborough County facing similar vulnerabilities. And then, of course, once we had made a short list of good roads to focus on, we then convened a technical stakeholder committee meeting to help us finalize our final 3 selections. These are our final 3 selections. I'll share a little bit of information on those. The Dana Shores Road, we identified its primary vulnerability as one being tidal flooding, of course, being in a more coastal setting. And then 78th Street, we are looking at stormwater flooding and with more of an inland context. And then we also have North Boulevard in the city of Tampa, and we're going to be looking at that as its predominant challenge is extreme heat. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be looking at Dana Shores Drive from Memorial Highway to George Road. This is approximately 1 mile in length. It's an urban minor collector, and this was identified in the Tampa Vulnerability Assessment, and we will be we've received good input from the Hillsborough County Stormwater Division on this particular road and can share more information on that later. 78th Street, as I had mentioned, we're going to be looking at from approximately Eagle Palm Drive to Falkenberg Road. This is a minor arterial with one travel lane designated in each direction. As you can see on the map, the blue indicates the 100-year floodplain, and the orange areas on the map indicate the 500-year floodplain. There is a very type of, as you can see, there's some industrial uses here. There are also some residential areas here, and a quick look through the Google Street View. It has a sort of a context of semi-rural as well as industrial context. But this road has very limited to non-existent resilience improvements, such as limited drainage, and for example, and on all these roads, we received good feedback from our stakeholder committee meeting that we held. And then finally, North Boulevard. We are, as I mentioned, focused predominantly on heat, extreme heat related countermeasures here. This is near Julian B. Lane. We'll be looking at Park and University of Tampa. We're going to be looking at from West Cass Street to Green Street, which is a little bit smaller of a segment. It's maybe about a quarter of a mile, give or take. This project came to us from the city of Tampa. They've spent a lot of attention to extreme heat, publishing their extreme heat playbook in 2024, and they had identified 22nd Street for potential cooling efforts and establishing some thermal comfort in that roadway corridor. And we had met with the City of Tampa's Sustainability Office, and given that 22nd Street, which was our initial consideration to study, we decided to, with their input, shift some attention to North Boulevard, looking at the City of Tampa's Heat Vulnerability Index. This particular area is sort of pinged on a map as a very vulnerable to extreme heat. And we see that there's a lot of potential here to explore some heat countermeasures. So as I was mentioning, the technical stakeholder meeting we held on February 9th, we gathered a lot of great input from several partner agencies, including the City of Tampa's Mobility Department, the City of Tampa's Office of Sustainability, which, as I mentioned, had helped us guide our efforts in choosing the most appropriate heat measure or heat vulnerable corridor to focus adaptive measures on. And then obviously the Hillsborough County Office of Emergency Management, Office of Sustainability and Stormwater Services section. And we had also spoken at this meeting, Tampa Aviation Authority was also present in this meeting. And I should hasten to add, we also did have representative from the Planning Commission, Spear Division, on the call as well. So that was a fairly brief overview. I'm glad to gather any input, take any questions or comments that you may have.
Questions, comments? I gotta have a comment. And why you already know this, street trees. One of the best tools to use to cool, 2 to 9 degree heat reduction has been shown on well canopied streets, so it kind of seems like that would be a quick, then they need to be shade trees, not some of the stuff we have a habit of putting in there, but that's just my 2 cents on that, but anything else, anybody? Thanks.
Just that, great presentation and, thanks for making the time to present while dealing with the
Yes,
family matter too. And
Yes.
wish you and your family well.
yes, same here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And your comment on shade trees is well noted. And the picture before, you could see North Boulevard had a lot of opportunity for improvement there. So, but thank you so much for your time and thank you for the comments.
Sure, thank you. All right, next, old business. Old business. New business. All right, well, that leads us to German, and it's 10:20. Right, so I guess there's no objection to adjourning, right? All right. Adjourn at 10:20. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And I have hard passes for you all as well if you need. Very quick today. That means you need more presentations, right?